So, Games Workshop just released the official teaser trailer for Astartes II, which is something that I personally have been waiting for a long time, and I actually started to be convinced that it would never happen. I know this doesn't have much to do with Legions Imperialis or even the Horus Heresy, but it is obviously Space Marine focused, and I think anybody who's interested in Legions Imperialis or the Horus Heresy in general will also be interested in Astartes. So, we're going to take a look at the trailer together, and I'm going to give you my thoughts and my analysis on what's contained in it and what we might see in the future. Now, I don't think we can actually watch it together. I think GW would give me a copyright strike for that, at least from what I've heard looking at other channels. So, we're going to go through it and show you stills from the video, and we'll just talk about them. And this is going to be kind of a free-form video, not too much scripting here. I'm just going to give you my thoughts as they occur to me, and hopefully that won't be too painful. So anyway, let's get started. The first thing that comes up on the screen is this quote, which I am not specifically familiar with from my 40K days. But it says, "Many brotherhoods united in purpose, we are the shield that slays." So again, I don't know if this is something that was composed for this trailer specifically, or if this is something that is drawn from a book or lore, um, in previous editions or novels from the Black Library. But it's an interesting quote. The last bit, "We're the shield that slays," right? This idea that the Space Marines are the defenders of the Imperium, but they also have this offensive purpose, right? So you have the idea of the best defense being a good offense, and I think that's pretty well exemplified in the Space Marines. The idea in the first line about many brotherhoods united in purpose, I think that's looking ahead towards where this may be going. I think it's pretty obvious if you've seen this trailer or if you've looked at any of the material that Warhammer Community pushed out for it, that this is sort of a prelude to a Death Watch series. And so, of course, there's several layers here, right? There's the idea that the Death Watch is itself composed of many Space Marine chapters, all united in one purpose, that is to serve as the Inquisition's, what is it? The military arm, I forget the name that they use specifically, but the military chapter for the Ordo Xenos. There's another layer too, the idea that the Space Marines themselves, because they're so small in number in their individual chapters, that to really undertake any kind of major military operation, they really need to work together to cooperate, and that is, of course, why Guilliman split them up, or at least that's the ostensible reason why Guilliman split them up in the aftermath of the Horus Heresy. But maybe more interestingly, it also calls back to the historical inspiration or historical origin for the Space Marine chapters, which are, of course, the knights, the military orders of knights that were founded during the Crusades in the Middle Ages, and are essentially warrior monks, or that's the idea, right? And that, I think you see that very clearly with the knights, the Black Templars, and so on. Which their iconography is explicitly drawn from those crusading orders of knights. So there's a lot to unpack here. I won't belabor the point anymore, but let's take a look at what comes next. I'm going to get to the next. Here we go. So this is a great shot. So we see a Space Marine. This looks like maybe one of Siyama Peterson's chapter, the Retributors. I'm not sure. And he's standing over what's clearly a hive city. It's a little bit different, I think, than what we normally think of as a hive city. It seems more like a futuristic. It reminds me of the city from The Fifth Element, right? You got the flying cars, Coruscant from Star Wars. But it does have that 40K flair, right? You can see the angel down there, some of the religious iconography. You got these pointed spires, some Gothic architecture. But, the composition of this is so great, right? You have the Space Marine, which draws your attention first, and then you have the light that brings your eyes to the, I think this is a Storm Eagle transport here, or maybe it's a Fire Raptor. I don't see the ball turrets on the side, so I think it's the transport, which I think is a little unusual in 40k. I don't think there's many chapters that have these aircraft still available in their armories, but maybe that's important. Maybe he's brought that detail in to give us some kind of clue about what chapter this is, and what their mission might be. And what their status is in the Imperium, that they maybe have access to these more specialized or rarer artifacts that have fallen into disuse due to the technological decay of the Imperium over the last 10,000 years since the Horus Heresy. But overall, I mean, this is just great, right? Like, you have this green kind of hellish glow coming up from beneath. So very evocative, great shot. Let's see what else. And then we cut right to this scene, which I think is pretty clearly intended to be the Underhive, right? You have this continuation of that green glow we were just talking about up at the top of the screen, leading straight down to this central figure who's guarded by, looks like a normal human here. He's got a rifle maybe, and then a couple of compatriots. This is obviously a Space Marine of some kind, probably a Chaos Space Marine, maybe. Although there is one of the chapters that this focus on is the Mortifactors, which I believe have a kind of bone theme, which maybe that's what this is. But there's something that's coming in the next shot, which I think points more towards a Chaos Space Marine explanation. He's in this area here. I think we just talked about the Underhive, right? Like, these are all, I think, pretty clearly just the oppressed humans living in the Underhive, and it looks like he's inciting a revolution or a rebellion of some kind. So if we'll go on to the next shot here. I guess it's not quite yet. So then we get some of the of Siama Peterson's homebrew chapter. I think they're called the Retributors, but he's got some interesting armor. I think this is the Mark 8 with the Gorget, and then of course a neat plasma gun. This looks like an old school plasma gun, which makes sense given the fact that these are the original style Space Marines, not Primaris. And they're just kind of doing more Retributor stuff. So I'm glad I paused here, because I think this is pretty clearly an 8-pointed star, and just the styling looks like Chaos Space Marines. So I think it's pretty clear that that's what we have. And I'm trying to get to the next bit here. So we got the fire, and then if you look, it is, whoops. So that's pretty clearly the Corn rune. I'm not sure if I can get it to fully show. But anyway, I'm pretty sure that's the Corn rune. And just on the styling of these guys, it's pretty clear these are Space Marines, or Chaos Space Marines. So moving on, we've got more Retributors doing Retributor things. All right, this guy's got looks like a heavy bolter, I think. They're just fighting back to back. And then, of course, we get the shot of all of the chapter helmets. Some sides of the Emperor firing another heavy bolter. Looks like he's got some kind of laser sight here. And then they're fighting Tyranids, which I can't really show you just because of the swiftness with which they're moving. But I think this was a great shot. I really wish I could show you, because it emphasizes what made Astartes so great. Because this guy, the economy of movement which these guys show which Siama Peterson imbues his Space Marines with, where this Space Marine in the foreground, we see he's just stabbed, I think it's a Hormigaunt, and as he pulls the blade up out of the slain enemy, he cuts this other one that's jumping at him in half. And that really emphasizes just how skilled and how effective these Astartes are. And I hope we see more of that. More fighting. And then this guy's cutting down. And then we cut to, I think this is a Malefactor Space Marine with the bone and the black. He's fighting orcs, which is great. We don't really see orcs much in animation, I don't think. And I think also a lot of times they get made into cartoonish villains, which I think is unfortunate because really I think they would be very scary, right? These are not sort of the cringing orcs of Lord of the Rings, and they're also not, they're not really cartoonish. I guess I can't really show you too well, but and they take this Space Marine down, right? The numbers tell, and so they're able to knock him to the ground, and then they just looks like they kill him. Although perhaps there would be one of his friends coming to save him. That might be a dramatic moment that I could see a Space Marine story having happen. Then we have this great shot of what looks to be a Blood Angel, maybe a Death Company based on the blackness of his armor. Sorry, skipping past it. But he's going through this ice tunnel, maybe on an asteroid somewhere. Looks like there's zero gravity, which would be a great scene to see. Got more orcs. These look like commandos, camouflage. And then we cut to an Imperial ship. This looks like a cruiser, maybe. I love how much stuff is on the hull. Like, it really makes it look like a city has been encrusted onto the vessel. I think it's a great shot. We see it's obviously in some kind of atmosphere, so there's probably some kind of space battle, and this is descending into the atmosphere after it's been mortally wounded. Then we cut back to the Blood Angel. We see his iconography here. Although it does have this skull symbol, which I can't read the Latin there. I don't. Well, this is pretty definitive right here. This is definitely a Blood Angel. But let's see what else we have. Cut back to him. He's floating, and there's the ship in the background. So it's pretty clear to me that they're in the atmosphere. There's some kind of low altitude space battle probably, and maybe they're conducting some kind of boarding action. My guess maybe would be there's an orc rock that's just warped into the system. That would explain the ice tunnel. It would explain the starship. So I don't know. A lot of considerations here. Then we cut to a Raptor Space Marine. Kind of a strange heavy bolter here. It looks like he's made the caliber of the weapon a little bit more reasonable. I'm not sure. It definitely doesn't look quite right according to the models. Looks like it's got a box magazine and a belt fed backpack, which is a little strange. Maybe I'm just misreading that. At first, I thought these were shuriken from an Eldar weapon, but if we go to the next scene, if I can get it done right, yeah. So we see this is a Tau stealth suit that they're fighting. So we're sensing a theme here, right? All of these Space Marines are fighting a Xenos of some kind. This is a cool setting for a fight. It looks like one of those I forget the name of it now, but the ancient Roman cities in the desert, and the sandstone architecture reminds me of that very much. And then we cut to this armored engagement, which is really cool to see him animating some armor. They're on a highway. The predators don't have sponsons, which is interesting. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe the raptors have some kind of philosophical opposition um, to sponsons. I don't know, but they're engaging something and moving at high speed, which is great to see. This guy just took a shot, probably from some Tau weapon, if they're still fighting that enemy. It doesn't look like a railgun shot because it probably would have ripped right through the predator. And then we cut back to the Tyranids. So again, these guys are really well animated. I think they reminded me of gazelles almost, with the fluidity and speed of their motion. And if you look in the back right here, it looks like there's a rhino of some kind, or maybe that's the hull of a predator. So clearly things are not going super well for the Space Marines. We got some kind of... And then we cut to this Space Marine right here. I don't know what chapter this is. It's not familiar to me. He's got some kind of laser targeter, it looks like, on his helmet. Great to see the old style Space Marines. What else we got? These are probably the cultists, maybe, that we saw before in the pit of the Hive City. Again, without actually watching the clip, it's kind of hard to tell. And then we go back to the Retributors. This kind of makes me think of the hero from the first Astartes, which maybe would be neat to see him come back. I love this shot just because it makes me... I don't know, it feels real to me somehow. I'm not quite sure how to express that. We've got the old style dreadnought here. He's got his weapon up. Looks like a heavy bolter, maybe quad heavy bolter. Not sure. But the way he just walks back towards the screen, I don't know. This just feels like how a military man would walk towards a headquarters, protected by this guy on Overwatch. I don't know if I can quite explain why it makes me think of that, but it does. And then we cut to this bit, which is... this looks like more Chaos Space Marines, yeah. And then we cut to this bit. This is the sides of the Emperor, maybe? I'm not... Or maybe it's the Raptors. So yeah, they got their cloaks. Looks like they've got some kind of... Oh, this is a Tau Fire Warrior, I think, in his hand there. And then on the wall, there's some graffiti. We got the Emperor Forgets, which is, of course, rank heresy. But clearly this is some kind of imperial world that has been corrupted by Tau influence. Or liberated, I suppose they would say. They're obviously on some kind of mission, maybe to kill an ethereal. And then we cut pretty quickly to these guys, the Scythes of the Emperor, who look pretty cool. I don't know too much about them. They have a very striking scheme. And looks like we're back on this sandstone world. So maybe they're fighting with the Raptors. I'm not sure. The cloaks are very dramatic. I'm not sure if these are all captains or if that's just a thing that the Scythes of the Emperor adopt, as all of their Astartes have cloaks. More fighting, and then we switch to more Tyranids, and then the Malefactors. Okay, and we get this shot of point of view of being killed brutally by a chainsword, and I think that's it. And then, of course, we get the closing shot, right? So let's go back a little bit. So yeah, Astartes II. This is obviously a Terminator uh, tactical dreadnought armor, right? That sigil on his helmet is for the Death Watch, of course. So I think it's pretty clear from what GW has said on their the Warcom article they released with this, that the Astartes 2 is going to be a a show about the Death Watch. Like, these clips do not necessarily belong to the. In fact, they've explicitly said that these clips are not from Astartes 2. They are backstory for the actual show, which is, I think, pretty clearly going to be about the Death Watch, and each of these different Space Marines that we've seen in these clips, with probably the exception of the Chaos Space Marine. Not sure how that fits in quite yet, but each one of those is going to be a member of this Death Watch kill team, which presumably the story will focus around. Sorry about the sirens in the background there. Hopefully that's not the copyright police coming to take me away. But if you enjoyed this video on my analysis of the Astartes 2 trailer, make sure you like and subscribe and do all that YouTube stuff. If there was something I missed in the trailer that you noticed, make sure you leave a comment and point it out, and I'd love to talk about it. I will be putting out another video in the next couple of days about my thoughts on Astartes 2 and what we can expect to see from it. So make sure you stay tuned for that, and I'll see you then.